And good Wednesday morning. It is the middle of the week. We're here every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Central Time, and always glad that you can join us, whether it's by audio or perhaps you can do it visually and see the guests time to time when we have them in studio or we do a Skype. And you can always put it in your pocket through your MP3 player or your phone. I don't even know what those technical gadgets are, but you can take us with you on the road and listen to us later. And some of you are forwarding those archives. We thank you for doing that as well. I am Tamara Scott. The show is Truth for Our Time. And in such perilous times and questioning times, it is nice to know that we can always come back to one basis of truth, always having the same foundation. It need not change weekly. We need not elect new leaders who will take us down a different path or have a different idea. The beauty and the difference between a democracy and a republic. A democracy, even an indirect democracy, the rulers make the law. In a republic, the rulers obey the law. And in America, in our republic, I think that's what's given us such long sovereignty and peace and liberty. Those Christian heritage principles in our First Amendment rights gave us liberty and freedom. And so I hope you're enjoying yours. I hope you're utilizing yours today in some way and speaking out on the issues that you care about. We have an interesting show today with all of the headlines happening and Secretary of State Kerry's comments about Israel and apartheid fitting into our conversation today as well. Joining me first off is Amanda Zand Irvin. Amanda, M-A-N-D-A, Amanda Zand Irvin. Amanda is, let me see if I can make sure I've got her bio here, with the Honor Diaries, one of the women who will be talking to us and who is a guest in the Honor Diary, talking to us about what happens with Israel. She's spoken at the G8 Summit as well as other locations. And I'm just going to go to her because I'm not, of all things, finding her bio on here, and I want to do justice for her. So, Amanda, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I apologize. I had your bio right in front of me, and I sure can't find it right now. Take our listeners a little bit. Who is Amanda Zand Irvin?
Well, I was born and raised in Iran. I was educated in the United States. And when Khomeini took over my homeland, Iran, in 1979, I was the managing director of the Customs Administration in Iran. And overnight, I became a second-class citizen and the property of a man. And so, therefore, I fled because they were coming to arrest me. I was not supposed, in their system, in their Sharia law, no woman should have dared to be who I was. So I came to America, and I became a citizen, and I started fighting for the human rights of my sisters that I left behind in Iran. And that's what I have been doing during the last 34 years.
And we thank you for your work in that. We do have a trailer for the Honor Diaries.
Yes.
Ryan, would you like to play that? Would that be okay, Amanda, if we go ahead and play that for our listeners and viewers right now?
Of course.
Okay.
My sister was telling me how unhappy she was in her marriage. And I said to her, come to me. She said, I can't because I have to think about honor. She didn't want to dishonor the family by leaving her husband. In the end, she set herself on fire. Rabina did, and she died.
The concept of honor, it is very difficult to explain it to Western societies.
Honor is something that is carried and contained in women and is there to be guarded by men.
ومن هو وليها؟ أولاً يأتي الأب، ثم الزوج، ثم الابن.
Anything from wearing short sleeves, refusing to wear a headscarf, being seen talking to a man.
Those things can be deemed dishonorable.
Thousands of women have been detained for dressing un-Islamically. Like this woman screaming as she's pushed into a police car.
The honor system in Muslim-majority societies is really the basis of a lot of harm that is perpetuated against women.
It's systematic, institutionalized misogyny.
I was crying and begging him to stop. Then he put his hand on my mouth like this. I couldn't breathe. I was crying, but he used me anyway.
The issue of forced marriages, child marriage, and honor abuse is a worldwide problem.
When you do dissent with what is portrayed as mainstream belief, you are ostracized. There are threats of murder, there are threats of rape, physical mutilation.
It's important to talk about what happens physically so that every human being, male and female, understand that the genitals of the female are cut.
We don't need sympathy, empathy, pity. We need systematic change in the Muslim world.
From Bahrain to Egypt, women have raised their voices and their fists in demanding universal rights.
People of all backgrounds can make a difference.
My sisters in solidarity, there has never been a better time than now to turn the tide.
We need a whole army of women helping other women.
We will speak up for our rights and we will bring change through our voice.
Amanda, take us through that trailer. What did we see there? We understand some of what we saw, but is this all Islamic countries? Is this just a few Islamic countries?
Well, in Islam, they have a law called Sharia law, and the men who are patriarchal hierarchies, who want to hold on to the power and take over the society because they're afraid of where humanity is going to, and they want to hold on to their power. They are using that Sharia law, even pushing it in America and in Western civilization as the holy law, which is an absolute lie. Sharia law, I would like your listeners to really understand that what these people are pushing as a holy law has nothing to do with holiness. Sharia law is a man-made law. It was made to rule and to govern the Islamic Arab Empire that was created through war, massacre, bloodshed in 7th century. And to rule the empire that they had created, the Islamic military had taken over all the great civilizations that lived, like Persian civilization, my own homeland, the great Syrian civilization, the Egyptian civilization, the Carthaginian civilization in North Africa. All those civilizations were removed and made illegal and against the religion and replaced by not only Islamization of the whole Middle East and North Africa, also by Arabization of the area. And so they created their own laws to govern the empire, the Islamic empire that they had created. And then they told the people that this is a holy law and you must follow our law and our orders. And so it continued. And today, the misogynist group of men who are ruling by tight fist, they are calling it a holy law, which has nothing to do with Quran. It has nothing to do with the Prophet. Not a word of what they are doing has been said by the Prophet, or you can find in Quran. And it has nothing to do with God. God has never issued or talked about any one single word in the Sharia law that they are pushing, and therefore it's all a mess and it's all a man-made law that they are forcing on the Muslims, especially on Muslim women, because Sharia law is not only against women. Sharia law is the law that you live by from birth to death. And so what is important for us to know is that we do not have to follow Sharia law because, and as if they say it's holy, it's not holy. And our laws, 21st century, the laws that has given humanity, as you said yourself, freedom, dignity, sovereignty, and equal rights for everybody. This is the law of 20th century, and we do not have, and we should not, nobody in this world should be forced to follow the laws of the 7th century.
Now, Amanda, I've interviewed Amani Mustafa on other networks, and we've done great interviews with Dr. Stephen Kirby, who's written 2 books on Islam and Sharia law, and he's writing his 3rd right now, and actually may join us a little bit later in the conversation, and he's welcome anytime, Steve, if you're listening. But I want to clarify for our listeners, what is your worldview right now, Amanda? Do you still consider yourself Muslim, or have you changed your faiths?
Well, I come from a family, most Iranians are secular. And what happened in Iran in 1979 Khomeini takeover was a political issue, was not a religious issue. And plus the fact that out of 35 million population, only 500,000 were there uprising, and God knows what happened. And we hold President Carter responsible for what happened in Iran, because Iran is a very progressive country, and we are, the people are. But I never practiced religion, neither did my family. Actually, I come from, in Iran, everybody marries everybody, disregarding who is worshipping who. Actually, in our traditional human rights that was written by Cyrus the Great 2,500 years ago, tolerance and freedom of worship has been something that Iranians have always held important. So this issue, I don't have a religion. I really do not, because what I never practiced, I continue not to practice. And so I can call myself a secular human being.
Well, I hope that someday you can find the religion that I have found, and it's not religion. Mine is relationship with Jesus Christ, and I know that may vary from yours, but for us here in America, we think that's a great deal of what gave us our freedoms and our liberties, where there's Judeo-Christian values and the fact that people, we do have, when we talk about something being political and not religious, if we are going to obey the tenets of what our God set forward in the Old Testament and the New Testament, then it affects and impacts everything that we do. So I just want to be clear for our listeners where our worldviews are at. But let's move forward. And I want to clarify again, we're not saying that anyone who is a Muslim, that all Muslims are bad or wrong. But I do have issues, I do take issues with the Quran, because doesn't the Quran have a verse in it that talks about how you can beat your wife or how you can discipline your wife?
Well, it doesn't say beat your wife or anything. In Quran, there is, to tell you the truth, I never read the Quran because I never practiced religion. But after Khomeini took over, I went to see, what's in there against women. And yes, there is a statement in Quran that says women are your property. You can treat them as you wish. And so, based on this statement in Quran, Sharia law has made women the properties of men. Women and children are considered properties of men. And so therefore, they can do what they wish to them. Kill, mistreat, abuse, love, rape, and sell, and do whatever you wish.
Well, and that's what we're seeing with Sharia law. What I have described it is what you bring into a community to bring on full-fledged Islam. But before full-fledged Islam is here, it usually starts with Sharia law in some instances, and we see it often even in the United States coming in through the family courts, who may have different views than those we find in America. And so they're now looking to Sharia law or Islamic family law, and that's a concern for some of us because of what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Because of the dominance, the power that men have, and women become as property. And I think there may be a verse in there that talks about regarding your women as you would cattle. And so for most of that, that's a concern for women, a great deal of concern, not to mention what we saw in this trailer with the physical things that they are doing to young girls, and not to mention the 9-year-old brides that Mohammed took as an example. And we see that happening today. While actually we were at the Iowa State Capitol, and they were putting together a bill to stop webcam abortions, killing infants in the womb, women in the womb before they were born. A reporter tried to raise the question about the war on women. And I thought it was so ironic because a tweet came through the same moment as sitting in that press conference that they had just okayed child brides in another country. And I thought, there is your war on women.
Yes. Yes, when I watch televisions or listen to the radios or read papers, and I hear some women in Washington, D.C., standing around and screaming and protesting for free birth control provided by the government, that really makes me cringe because I think, look how shallow,
right?
How shallow these women have become as the result. Instead of cherishing the freedom, cherishing the sovereignty that they have been given, they stand there and scream for birth control and or attend the Congress of the United States and as a lawyer and ask for free birth control. These are so unbelievable. It makes me cringe, makes me want to scream and say, where in the world are you living in?
Right.
And
right.
What are you thinking or feeling that there are women in this world, to be precise, about 1 billion with a B, women and children in this world are properties of men and practically living in total slavery. And there are these women who are standing here and screaming for free birth control. That is, I don't know, shameful. I don't want to be disrespectful, but to me, it really, at times, I feel like crying when I hear these women who are so far out of the realities of the world, and they are so shallow.
Absolutely, and we feel like crying as well because they're so far removed of the role of government. And honestly, if you don't want government telling you what to do with your body, for years we heard stay out of my bedroom, and now they're welcoming government into their womb and to fund the activity they're in. So it makes no sense. It irritates the rest of us as well, Manda, and it is a poor stewardship of the freedoms and the liberties that women have so been given in America. Dr. David Noble says that women have been given more liberties, more freedoms, more opportunities in America than any other country. And so we hate to see it so wasted on such superficial topics like that. Manda, we have to go to a break, but you can stay with us until 10:30. Is that right?
Sure.
When we come back, maybe we'll take some callers.
Okay.
Very good. We'll be right back after these messages. I am Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent.
And I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for joining us. Want to also thank some of our sponsors who are coming alongside of us. Crave Ministries. You can find them at Christians for America. Christians, the number 4 America, working on getting folks out there who have moved away, walked away from bondage of drugs, from alcoholism, and have found freedom and liberty in their relationship with Jesus Christ. Again, it's not about religion. It's about relationship. And Jesus died so that we don't have to. And Jesus took all the sin and the bondage that we might live and walk in freedom. And it's just a really great walk once you realize that you can do that. My guest today is Manda Zan Irvin. Manda Zan Irvin, you can find more about her on her diaries, is what we're talking about, a documentary on what is happening to young girls and women under the Islamic rule. We have story after story of schools being burned down and the children not being let out because the girls weren't dressed properly, the mistreatment of young girls. In that documentary, it talks about the what they do physically to these young girls. We just know that this is not what God had planned in the Bible, which I love to say. God changed how man viewed women. Women had never owned property until the Old Testament, when the 2 daughters said, "We have no husband. Can we not take an inheritance?" And they said, "Yes, you can take the inheritance." First time, I think that probably changed the rule. Jesus, the way he treated women in his ministry, they were prominent. They were mentioned in the Bible, rare for that day. God changed the way the woman was viewed. And we have that view in the Bible as well as the submissive wife to her husband. But understand, it is not a painful obligation. Submission, when it is done well, is a liberty and a freedom, because the instruction is that the man would love his wife like Christ loved the church. What did Christ do to the church, for the church? He died so that they may have liberty and freedom. And when you have a man you know will do anything for you, protect you, help you achieve those dreams that God gave you to have, help you do those gifts, fulfill those areas where God's called you to be, then you have no problem listening to that man, because you know he's got your best interest at heart and he'll do anything to protect you. Not going out and murdering and killing in the name of a God, but honoring and worshiping and sacrificing and surrendering for his family. And that way we honor the man to be the leader of the home, to make the best decisions for us, because he will, knowing he's going to do what he can for our good. So, Amanda, thank you so much for staying tuned with me.
Of course.
How is it, can we have Islam then without these persecutions because they are so prevalent in all of the countries where we have Islam, Sharia law. We see this behavior. And I will give this disclaimer. We see it a little bit in other religions too. We see the legalistic Christians who want to tell women they can't wear their sleeves a certain way, their dresses have to be a certain length, they can't hold an office, they can't hold a position in the church. That's legalism, and that's not God. That's not the liberty that comes, I think it's in 2 Corinthians or 1 Corinthians 3:17 with Jesus Christ. But how do we have that in Islam? Is there any way to have that liberty and freedom in Islam?
Well, yes, this is why they are fighting so hard. Before I start giving you the answer, I'd like you to know that I am married to an Irish-American Catholic, and so is my daughter, to an Italian-American Catholic. So, and having said that, when during the era of Age of Enlightenment in the Western world, Christianity and Judaism changed alongside the society, but Islam remained as it was under the control of few dictator men. Now it's 21st century, and humanity has learned, people have learned and know that they are sovereign. And many of these teachings comes from Christianity also, that people are free and God has created people free. Freedom is nothing that anybody gives or takes from people. So what we need today, these men have learned that their time is up. And all this terrorism, all these crimes that they are committing against their own people, all these discriminations, all these organization lobbies that they establish with our petrodollars we give them in America to fight for the Sharia law establishment in America, all of these are for the fear that they see and they know that they have to give up what's going on. But
Manda Zand is my guest. And Manda, we do have a caller on the line, and it is Dr. Stephen Kirby, the author of some of those books. So I look forward to having him join the conversation. Steve, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is a very interesting topic.
And I know you're well versed in it as well. You've written you have two books under your belt and one more being penned.
That's right. Hopefully it's pinned soon.
And so I know that you and Manda are on the same page as far as hoping to do away with the violence and the mistreatment of women.
Correct. I guess a question I would have is, Amanda, you said nothing they are doing can be found in the Quran and the teachings of Muhammad. And you said Sharia law was man-made law. But for many years, it's been my understanding that Sharia law is based on the Quran and the Sunnah, the teachings and examples of Muhammad. And the only man-made portion comes around the fringes in areas not covered in the Quran or in the Sunnah. And that's where you look to the consensus of authoritative Islamic scholars. So around the fringes, you could say it's man-made. But I'm curious, you say it's man-made. What about the Quran and the Sunnah, major components of Sharia law?
Yes. Well, I as I said, I'm a secular person. I never read Quran. I never learned anything about Islam or religion. I grew up in a secular family who never practiced. I never practiced. I'm not a scholar on any religion at all. So the only thing that I am fighting for is the injustice and the laws that are against women, children, and human race. That's the only thing that I am fighting for. And by no means I can defend Quran or Sunnah. I don't even know what Sunnah is. And I know that Sharia, I have been told all my life that Sharia is not a holy law. It's a man-made law. And that's how what I know. And so therefore, I agree with you. You're a scholar on Islam. I am not. And I am a human rights activist for the rights of women and children in the Islamic world that are being brutal to them.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly in that this issue needs to be addressed. But to address it, don't we first have to establish the source of the problem, the source of this brutality and mistreatment of women?
Well, I do agree with you. We have to address the source, but at the same time, we have to address what is being done today in 21st century and the people who are doing it, and that how the Western civilization that has been created and based on human rights should fight against these injustices, however it may be, and not succumb to intimidation and fear-mongering, and or call it political, what you call multiculturalism, and so therefore whoever says whatever and whoever wants to do anything to our society and the people, then, okay, it's their culture, we'll agree with it, or we'll let it go on and continue and be exempted from the present laws of the land.
And Manda, you just hit on something. We see the bumper stickers with the coexist and all the religious symbols from a variety of groups, and can't we all just get along? And the truth is, when one is violent, when one will not respect the rights of the others, no, you can't. And I will stand on this, and Dr. Kirby, I'm not sure where you're at, but I think that because America stood on the Judeo-Christian values, and I think I am pretty sure on where you're at actually, that's why we have such liberty and freedom in America. It was the Judeo-Christian values that gave all of those who came to America the right to pursue their own faith as they wished, but it was the violence of the Muslims, if I'm not wrong, off the shores of Tripoli, the Barbary pirates, where we created our navy to protect ourselves even from Islam's violence 200 and some years ago.
Right, and I'm in complete agreement with you on that. If I could, I think to address this issue of how women are treated, we first have to look to the teachings of Muhammad and what we find in the Quran, because you've got verses in the Quran that allow Muslims to beat their wives, although not with severity. And it states that a woman, when it comes to needing a witness in property matters, the testimony of a woman is worth only half of a man. And then you have a hadith where Muhammad said that the fact that it takes two women to equal the testimony of one man shows a deficiency in the intelligence of women. So what you've got doctrinal obstacles to what Amanda and you and I and many others would like to address, and that is the second-class treatment at best of women under Islam. But I don't see how we can ignore the doctrinal basis for these actions. And that back to the question I had was, if there's nothing they are doing that can be found in the Quran and the teachings of Muhammad, are there any examples of this that can't be found in the Quran and the teachings of Muhammad?
And Steve, ask me that question again, because you're saying if they're not there, are there any that can't be found?
Well, yeah, that was a little rough phrasing. are there any examples of the mistreatment of women under Sharia law or just the mistreatment of women that cannot be found in the Quran? My argument would be pretty much any treatment, any mistreatment of women can be found either in the Quran or in the teachings and examples of Muhammad. So I would like to know that perhaps Amanda has some examples of some mistreatment of women that cannot be supported by the Quran or the teachings of Muhammad. I'd be curious about that because I think it's otherwise. I think you can find the basis for virtually all of this stuff in the Quran and in the teachings of Muhammad.
Well, as I said, I have never read Quran. I don't know anything what Quran says or doesn't say. Neither did my family. Actually, my maternal grandfather was a Zoroastrian, and one of my grandmothers was a Baha'i. So I grew up in a secular, non-practicing family. So I cannot refute, agree, or disagree with what you know about what Quran says against women and children or not. As I said, my concern is, I understand there are scholars like yourself who study what Quran has said, and if what Sharia law is saying is based on Quran or is not based on Quran. Really, as an activist, the only thing I want to see is eradication of all of those injustices. That's all I want to see. That's what I am fighting for. That eradicate the people, the laws, and the rules who are mistreating women and children and holding 1 billion human beings hostage.
And absolutely mistreating them, and even honor killings, taking their life. Amanda, we agree with you on that. Dr. Kirby and myself certainly agree with you on that, and doing away with the mistreatment of women and girls and the child brides. We absolutely agree with that. And I think what Dr. Kirby, we have to go back to the root. And Amanda, I appreciate you being honest that you haven't read the Quran, because we wonder how many haven't. We have a lot of Christians who haven't read the Bible either, and that's the problem. Is if we need to understand what we're supposed to support and obey and believe, and so we invite people to get out there and to read. I would invite you to read the Bible, Steve, and that's kind of one of the concerns. Is Brigitte Gabrielle? I know you work with her group. She says the more you read the Quran, the more violent and radical and intolerant you become. The more you read the Bible, the more loving, peaceful, forgiving you become. So there's just a comparison, if you will. Steve, you have a group that meets, talks about this, talks about Islam, understanding America, what's happening in America, and what we need to be doing right now. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, the best way would be with the chapter email address, and it's the ACT chapter for the Des Moines area. So our email address is dsmact@q.com. That's dsmact@q.com.
And Amanda, thank you for taking your time to join us today. People can get the honordiaries.com. honordiaries.com. Will it have a place on there where they could order them, they could show them to friends and learn themselves?
Yes, there are. They can click on showing request.
And Amanda, I appreciate your work in working to help women all over the world. We see in every country where Sharia law and Islam comes in, it is at the cost and the burden and the risk to women, to children, and only certain men in power will be able to benefit from that, and even then, until someone decides to take them out. And it's.
Can I make one last statement?
Sure, absolutely.
That is, now the international community has made an effort and have united against racial apartheid in South Africa. and they have, again, with the American leadership, the international community united to get rid of communist dictatorship in East Europe and Central Asia. Why is it that no one in our world is uniting or trying to do away with gender apartheid in our world? Gender apartheid is a shame on human societies all over the world.
I agree. We need to be doing what we can to take care of any mistreatment of any human being, and keeping them in living, again, with the Judeo-Christian values of what is healthy, what is right, what is in obedience or parallel with what John Blackstone said was God's law or nature's law. We know that's how we have best health, best liberty, and our freedoms. Amanda, I hope that you'll come back on again with us. It's been an interesting conversation, and I think we break it down for those who aren't scholars like Steve and hear things in the media, and this is a great way for us to come together and understand we don't have to, any of us, agree on absolutely everything, but can we find those few things we can work together on and make our country better? Amanda, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be heard.
You are welcome, and my thanks to Maria for helping us connect. Amanda Zan, you can find more information on honordiaries.com. It is something that is graphically horrific to watch, to know about, but you must, so that you can be able to defend against it. And Steve, I don't know if you can stay with us. I hope you can stay on till 11. Yep, very good. And we're going to go to, after break, I think Alexandria Pelosi has a short time with us. She's with Concerned Women for America. Amanda set me up perfectly there when she was talking about apartheid. Secretary of State Kerry's remarks on apartheid in Israel. We're going to touch on that when we come back. If Alexandra can stay with us for just a short time, we'll be right back after these messages. I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time. Stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
And thanks for staying tuned. I am Tamara Scott. It's always exciting. We never know exactly what's going to happen out, but I have some great guests joining me today. And on the phone line right now is Alexandria, and I think it's Pelosi, but I need to check and make sure I'm saying it right because I just email her all the time and I never have to say her name. And she is with Concerned Women for America. Alexandria, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, and you're correct, it's Pelosi.
Okay, very good. Not to be confused with Pelosi.
Yes, totally different spelling.
Okay, very good. And what is your title with Concerned Women for America?
I am CWA's Senate Legislative Director, but I'm also their expert on Israel. We have 7 core issues, and one of those is support for Israel.
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate that very much. Recently in the news, Secretary of State made a comment, and you can explain to our listeners and viewers, in case they don't know, those comments were in what meeting?
So it's the Trilateral Commission, and he pretty much said that if Israel could not come to an agreement on peace with an Israeli-Palestinian two-state solution, that they would become an apartheid state. And that hit a big nerve with many different legislators on the Hill, pro-Israel lobbyists, and just people in general that support Israel.
And Mike Evans, who is a Middle East expert and a longtime personal friend of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said the U.S. and the Palestinians are demanding that Israel make concessions in full knowledge that the Palestinians want to exterminate them. This is not about a terror strategy. This works like this. Israel, you give us what we want, or we kill you.
Yes, I think it's important to kind of lay the background here. Since the creation of Israel in 1948, there's been this Palestinian-Arab neighborhood conflict. And with that conflict, it's sparked by religion, and it continuously has stalled peace talks. Well, last week we have 2 Palestinian factions. One that's Fatah, that's near the West Bank, and the other that's Hamas, that's near Gaza Strip, has decided since 2007 when they split that they would plan to reunite and have a united government. Well, with that, it raises many different concerns. One of the largest is that Hamas is hostile to Israel and is actually considered a terrorist organization by the United States and the European Union. And it is within their charters that state and calls for the death of all Israelis and the Jews. And so with that, of course, talks are going to be stalled because these 2 factions uniting is going to hurt Israel in the long run.
And let's be clear, if we hurt Israel, we hurt America.
Correct. That they're our strongest ally. And Secretary Kerry's comments are irresponsible. For a man of his significance in this administration, it just shows his lack of accountability. To use that term, apartheid, against the Jewish state, which has built its existence on separation, is inexcusable. And like I said, it hit a nerve.
And it's not just a one-time slip of an expression. This is something that students face on college campuses, even here in America. When I was in Israel just recently, an Arab reporter, I was not sure what his attitude would be. And he said, I have figured out that I live in Israel, which is dangerous. People ask me what it's like, and I tell them I'd rather be here than go to a campus in at an American college, because when I speak about Israel on American colleges, it's more hostile than being here in the situation I'm in. And we hear students who are dealing with Israel Apartheid Week. They hold events on college campuses. Radical anti-Israel professors promote this thinking. So this is not just an accidental slip. This is something that has been pushed in it kind of changing the thinking of how we deal with Israel.
You're absolutely correct. And knowledge is key here. And that's one of the reasons why Concerned Women for America has what we call our college chapters is Young Women for America. And we are getting into the college campuses for that exact reason, to bring our 7 core issues, and one of them support for Israel, and to get that narrative across to our young people that this is important and they are our ally, and here is what is going on in the Middle East.
And let's be clear as well, Israel has done a great deal. They gave up part of the Gaza, they've given up part of the West Bank, and having been there and now seeing there's not one place in Israel that is rocket free. You can reach all areas of Israel with a rocket. Their borders are tentative, to say the least, as to what might break out at any moment. So for our Secretary of State to make such a statement, and then I think more concerning to me, and I'm not finding it right now, but was a Newsmax article where the Secretary of State said, "I will not allow my position on Israel to be questioned." That attitude, to me, is something you see out of someone who may be a dictator-style personality, to tell someone you can't be questioned. The whole realm of our government, checks and balances, is that we do hold those in elected office accountable. And I'll have grace with somebody when they mess up. But as I said, this is a growing movement on college campuses in the way this is framed.
You're correct. And once the words have left the mouth of someone with such significance in the administration, who is a representative of the United States, there's no way to recapture those words. And he's a figure who's looked upon as great power in our with our allies and with international communities, and you can't have a do-over. And so, America needs to be careful when we're speaking about Israel and with our allies, because this we need to be firm, and we need to let other countries know where we stand, and this is confusing.
Did the Secretary of State weaken America's position by making such a statement?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did the Secretary of State weaken America's position with foreign countries by making such a statement?
I think so. Whatever statement comes out of his mouth is how other countries view us. And right now, we're not coming off as such a friend of Israel, and that's concerning. And I know that our lawmakers see that. There's many on Capitol Hill every day that go to the Senate floor and speak out against this, because it's something that we need to be strong and united on. And our leaders that are overseas aren't making that clear.
And I'm not asking you to guess or to tell us what may happen on the Hill, but of course, Senator Ted Cruz came out, and I think he even asked for a resignation. But within his own party, Kerry's party, with people he's served with, I think Boxer and some of his colleagues within the Democratic Party have come out in disgust over his remarks.
This is a huge bipartisan issue, and we see that even when we look at legislation like Nuclear Weapons Free Iran Act, which would be supportive of Israel. That has huge support, over 60 co-sponsors, and they're on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, coming together. And that is just seeking to make sure that Israel is kept safe and that there's sanctions in place to make sure that our support for Israel is not questioned. And that goes to show that something like that is definitely needed when we're dealing with the remarks that Secretary Kerry made.
And Senator Rand Paul, didn't he just put legislation forth that really had a timeline, I think, of 6 weeks on it?
He did, yes.
And has it moved forward? Will it move forward? Will it make a difference?
Right now we're dealing with a Senate that is not able to do much and is not bringing anything to the floor that does not fit with the president's agenda.
Okay.
So we really need people to call their legislators and be loud on this.
Do you have the switchboard number?
Excuse me?
Do you have a switchboard number? I usually have that with me, and I don't think I do.
Senate switchboard number is 202-266-1000. 3121.
Thank you. 202-266-3121. You can always call that and they'll connect you with your legislative members. And then you can, as Alexandra is saying, tell them we need to stand with Israel. And Alexandra, we do that because Genesis tells us those who bless Israel will be blessed and those who curse Israel will be cursed. Alexandra, thank you for giving me the time you've given me today. Concerned Women for America, Young Women for America, college groups. If we want to get involved with that, we can go to the website, and it is Concerned Women for America or CWFA.org. Alexandra, thank you for the work that you do. Any parting comments to our listeners and viewers?
Just to be active on this, and CWA is having a trip to Israel for the next Thanksgiving. And for more information, they can go to our website at concernedwomen.org. We really need activists. That's the only way that we're going to get something done on this issue. And I would just really beg your listeners to do that and pray for Israel. So thank you very much for having me.
Alexandra, I thank you for jumping in and being part of the conversation today. If you've not been to Israel, I can't tell you enough how much it will change your life, your thought process. In America, some like to doubt the fact that Jesus walked the face of the earth. No one doubts it in Israel. Some may try and deny his powers, his miraculous powers or his divine anointing, but they do not deny him. And in fact, I find it somewhat humorous. The Muslims who resist him as much as they can have put cement in the eastern gate where he's to come back through in the prophecy of his return, and they've put Muslims in the ground in the graveyard in front of the eastern gate. And I just had to chuckle and think, for a group that does not want to give him his due, they sure fear him plenty to go to all that work. And if you know my God, a cement wall is not going to stop the return of the Savior, and nor will the few people who are buried in front. He came to give all who turn to him life, and there's just not a thing that anybody's ever going to do about it. The Bible says every knee shall bow. Steve Kirby, have you stayed on the line this time?
Yes, I'm here.
I thank you for what you give to Iowans and what you give to Americans with your books. Any closing comments? We have about 3 or 4 minutes left, but any closing comments you have for the listeners, the viewers out there who have heard from Amanda today? We thank her for coming on and letting us know of the violence that is taking place to girls and women under Sharia law. But what would you say to our viewers?
Well, I was thinking about her comment about why the world rallied against apartheid but doesn't say anything about the treatment of women. And I think it's because of the natures of the society. And this is why it's important to understand the source of the problem. When it came to the apartheid government of South Africa was and is a majority Christian country. And there's nothing in the teachings of Christ that allows somebody to enslave people and to treat them unjustly and cruelly. So that's why it was easier to rally against the apartheid government. But in the world of Islam, the treatment of women is based on teachings of Muhammad and the commands of Allah found in the Quran. So therefore, if you're going to address the mistreatment of women in the Muslim world, you have to address Islam itself. And I think that's why many people are afraid to even touch the topic. They don't want to have to address Islam.
I think you're absolutely right. I think many are fearful. And I appreciated Amanda's honesty in having not read the Quran. Do you find that often, Steve, when you're talking to folks that may even be defending the culture, the religion, have they truly read and understand the Quran?
Oh, yeah. A lot of Muslims are like a lot of Christians and Jews. They haven't read the Bible or the Torah. They haven't read the Quran. They really don't know their religion that well.
And so, and we talked about it briefly, this is coming through the courts. Amanda agreed. We see it coming through the family law courts. We want to be sensitive to those who have different beliefs, and we certainly want to promote the idea of religious freedom in this culture, in this country. But how is that balanced, Steve, with those who would use that First Amendment to force their beliefs and this type of ill behavior on the rest of us?
Well, I think we're in some new territory here in terms of the First Amendment issue, because the idea of the First Amendment wasn't predicated on religions forcing themselves, sometimes violently, on people of other religions. So this is a new phenomenon here in the United States. And like I say, we're on untrodden ground here, so we might have to kind of feel our way, and I don't have an answer. for that at this point?
Well, I think we're in untrod ground in several areas of our diplomatic policy, our foreign trade, and now in our domestic issues as well. I think you're absolutely right about that. And I don't think it's any mistake that it happens to be when we've turned our backs on what our foundation was. I think if we would come back to that, we'd be so much better off. It's not that we push that on anybody else. It's that because we have that foundation, everyone else has the liberty and freedom that we so have enjoyed and taken for granted oftentimes in this country. My thanks to you, Dr. Stephen Kirby, for staying with me through the show, and to Amanda Zan for being with us, and to Alexandria Pelosi for joining in the conversation. I hope you've learned a little something today, too. Go out, talk to your neighbors over the backyard fence, the water cooler. Understand that it's not, the change is not going to come out of D.C. The change is going to come out of our hearts and our heads and through the freedom and the liberties that we've talked about on this show. And it's up to you to spread that message as much as it is anybody else. So be encouraged and never be complacent.